Hello and welcome back to the third rail. We have a new addition to the collection today. I just received this little V36 shunter of the Deutsche Bundesbahn and I thought we should have a first look at it together. As usual with the new additions format, we'll cover a few basics and a bit of history to put the locomotive in context. We'll then have a closer look at the model and we'll end the video with a short run on the layout this week. Before we set off, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe and alert button before leaving today. Super thanks are also available if you feel the content deserves it. Whatever the option you choose will be much appreciated. Many thanks! Now, on to our topic. The model is a Märklin product, of course, reference number 3546, released in 1989. You'll find it on page 17 of the catalogue that year. A single version was produced for the general program and remained in production until 1993. This model is based on a tooling first released in 1982 under reference 3146. Cosmetically, the only differences are the cab roof configuration and the blackened wheels. This tooling was reused for many references spanning numerous railway companies, either as standalone versions or as part of a set. I have quite a few of them in the collection, some of which I presented on the channel a while back. I've put a link at the top if you fancy having a look at them. Now, on to a few vital statistics. The model measures 10.6 centimeters buffer to buffer. The body is made of plastic and is paired with a zinc die-cast chassis. This model is fitted with what Märklin called a 5-star propulsion system, comprising of an electronic reversing unit with motor regulation circuitry, controlling a 5-pole universal motor, that's a drum collector type, itself driving 3 axles fitted with 2 traction tires. We have triple headlights at both ends, which are directional, and a short coupling. Let's move on to a quick overview of the prototype for context. Our model represents the Class V36 diesel hydraulic locomotive of the Deutsche Bundesbahn. The class was commissioned in the 1930s by the German Wehrmacht, who needed a locomotive that could be operated in areas at high risk of explosion or fire, such as ammunition depots or refineries. The result of the commission was the WR360C14. I'll decode this for you. W stands for Wehrmacht, Armed Forces in English. R for Regelspur Lokomotive, which translates to standard gauge locomotive. 360 is the number of horsepower. C is the axle arrangement. And 14 the axle load in ton. 261 units were produced by a handful of manufacturers between 1938 and 1944. The locomotive followed the troops everywhere they were involved during World War II. As a result, some were left behind as the Wehrmacht withdrew and ended up on the inventory of foreign railway companies. However, at the end of World War II, the majority of the units were located in Germany. They were first integrated into the Deutsche Reichsbahn under Allied control at the time, then transferred to the Deutsche Bundesbahn or the Deutsche Reichsbahn in the East in 1949-1950. About 30 additional units were produced for the Deutsche Bundesbahn, foreign railway companies, for example the CFL, or some industry customers in the 1950s. We'll focus on the Deutsche Bundesbahn for this overview. Immediately after the war, the V36 was put to work not only on shunting but also on line duties such as light freight or suburban passenger traffic. In larger cities, a number of units were modified to operate push-pull services so they could be used in combination with a pilot car. In the early days, a simple bell system was retrofitted for the communication between driver and machine operator. In this configuration, due to the very poor visibility caused by the large motor hood or bonnet, the locomotive was mostly used cab forward. In the mid-1950s, when the time came to abolish two-man operations on commuter lines, further modifications were needed. Units were retrofitted with direct electro-pneumatic controls, a kind of drive-by-wire using solenoids to actuate the equipment. On some lines, the cab was also modified. A dome was added to the roof, and the controls were repositioned so the driver stood higher and visibility was improved in all directions. Our model represents this very configuration. These units were in service in a few cities, for example Frankfurt, Munich or Wuppertal. With the arrival of new V60s, rail buses of all kinds, and more widespread electrification, the class was progressively reallocated to light shunting and maintenance train duties. The last passenger service took place in 1967. In 1968, the entire class was renumbered to 236. They remained a common sight in many depots in Germany for another decade. The withdrawal of the first unit started in the 1970s, and the last unit left service in 1981. Our prototype was built by Wehrmacht, which was a Berliner Maschinenbau AG, I think, in 1940. It was first assigned to the Wehrmacht under number 39296. In 1945, the unit was transferred to what would become the US-British Railway Administration in Germany. Then in 1949 to the Deutsche Bundesbahn, where it was classed as V36 123. After an inspection in Lübeck, it was allocated to Wuppertal. In late 1950, it was moved south to Regensburg, then on to Munich in 1951, where it was stationed until 1954. It then moved a few times within Bavaria, first to Rosenheim, then Freilassing, before being reassigned to Munich in 1963. It was renumbered to 236123 in 1968. In 1972, the locomotive was allocated to Stuttgart in Baden-Württemberg, where it remained until its withdrawal in 1978. But that wasn't the end. The same year, it was transferred to the Railway Museum in Nuremberg for preservation. It was refurbished and reacquired its original Deutsche Bundesbahn running number in the process. It has since been kept in operational condition. Since 1991, it has been with the Dampfbahn Fränkische Schweiz, first as a loan until ownership transferred in 2002. The association has been using the locomotive in events on their heritage line. It has remained in regular use to this day. It is currently undergoing preparations for its main safety inspection. So it is still very much alive and kicking. Other units have also been preserved. I have put links about this in the video description, in addition to the usual credits and sources of the material I used to produce this overview. Now let's have a closer look at my 3546. And here it is. I won this on an auction site. The model was described as near mint. The pictures seemed okay, so I bid for it. Unfortunately, I didn't pay attention to the seller's details, who is someone I have been avoiding for a few years. His descriptions often leave a lot to be desired, but the main issue is the very poor after-sale experience I had on a couple of occasions. It is the type of seller who is happy to sell you stuff, but turns aggressive and rude at the first hint of a problem. So, let's see what I got. I am crossing my fingers. We have a white box. By 1989, Märklin had completely switched over to this type of packaging for its analog models, with a little drawing of the model and its internals over a blue line at the front. Digital was the same with a grey background colour. And two rare models, the Hammer models, had a white background and a red line. The box is in good shape, only a few marks here and there, but nothing serious. It's from the right year as well, so it's a good start. Let's open that thing. The plastic tray hasn't yellowed, and it's in one piece, which is very good. We have a complete set of instructions too. Märklin had just started including prototype information at the time. And here's the model. It doesn't look too bad. Let me put it on a presentation rail and we'll have a closer look. And there we are. Gorgeous little thing. I cannot see anything obviously wrong. Cosmetically, there are a couple of things to check before buying any model based on this tooling. The handlebars at the front are often missing or broken. There should be two on each side at the front of the model. But the most common issue has to do with the cab windows at the back. The glass panels tend to fall off and replacements have become almost impossible to get. Now, they often get dislodged in transport, so they might have simply fallen off at the bottom of the box, if you are lucky. But more often than not, they are simply missing. I had to refit loose windows on nearly all of the 10 or so units I own, so if you care about such things, it's best to check with the seller ahead of time if something is missing on listing pictures. Exceptionally here, we have nothing missing. The handlebars are there, all windows are present and firmly in place. Otherwise, everything looks in very good shape. Let's go around the model. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong. The paint is in excellent shape. The inscriptions are all there and legible. There's nothing broken off or missing. Let's look at the roof. It looks complete. The bell and all the attached parts are present. Another thing to check before buying one of those is the pipe going across the bonnet near the cab. It can be missing or the raised ends can be broken. As you can see, it is intact here. So, good stuff. Let's move on to the chassis. It really doesn't look like this model has seen a lot of track, although it's a bit difficult to assess with the blackened wheels fitted to this model. But it doesn't look bad. So, all in all, things look very promising so far. Let's move to the bench for a quick look inside. And there we are. We'll start with a quick function test. And we have motion. We can change direction. We have lights at the front. And at the back too. We cannot see them on camera, but they are there. The lighting is notoriously weak on this tooling, and we'll see why in a minute, but everything is operational, which is good. Let's have a look inside. The most common question about the V36 tooling is, how does one take it apart? The body screw is well hidden under a flap on the bonnet. It needs to be gently prised up. I normally do this with my fingernails, but they are too short at the moment, so I'm using a small screwdriver with very gentle pressure. Once the cover is off, the screw will then be accessible, and once it is out, the body will simply lift up. And here's the chassis in its full glory. It is a typical layout with the motor at the back, but there's quite a lot going on because of the 5-star propulsion system I mentioned in the model overview. The motor is a 5-pole universal motor, so we still have the usual windings. We then have the electronic reversing unit. It looks similar to other fully electronic units of the period, but we have 2 potentiometers to adjust the additional circuitry required by the system. I can never remember which is which, but one of them adjusts the acceleration and the other the power to the motor. Then we have 2 bulbs, one for each direction, in the center of the chassis. This explains the weak lighting, as the light is transferred to each end with light diffusers attached on the inside of the hood. Okay, we'll check the motor now. The brushes are basically new or close to new. I'll take the usual 2 screws off. And we have a 5-pole armature. And here it is out of the motor housing. Now, it is not interchangeable with the current armature types Märklin uses, in case you were wondering. The collectors look fine. The black band of graphite looks worse than it is. It is actually more discoloration of the surface than actual deposits. This would indicate very low usage again. And the inside of the motor compartment and cover plate are spotless. So I am simply going to grease and put the motor back together. I'll check the tires quickly, and they are fine. So I'll put the brushes back in. We'll do a quick function test to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. And all that thing needs now is a bit of oil. Okay, I am now going to send the loco for a run-in without the body shell, because I prefer to adjust the acceleration and power settings on the reversing unit once the locomotive has had some time on the track. One moment, please. Okay, we're done, and I used the opportunity for a pass on the outer loop with the track cleaning wagon. Now, the 5-star adjustment. The 5-star propulsion system really shines in heavier models, or the ones fitted with a DC motor, such as the 3511, the Württemberg Class C. To be honest, on this model, the 5-pole motor is the only real benefit of the system. At the moment, the acceleration delay is set to the minimum, so it is basically switched off. The locomotive has a good throttle response. It runs very smoothly and quietly at low speed. And this is all thanks to the 5-pole motor. Let's change the acceleration setting. I'm going to set the potentiometer to the longest delay possible. Now, if I set the throttle to the 100 mark, the electronics will increase the voltage to the motor gradually, which should produce a progressive acceleration effect. However, the motor requires quite a bit of current to start, so we end up with a long delay followed by a somewhat steep acceleration. Now, this is not helped by the fact that the motor doesn't need to work very hard to move this chassis. So we would get a far better result with a heavier engine or a motor capable of starting at a lower voltage. This is a shunter that is unlikely to pull heavy loads. Under this usage scenario, a long delay would only come in the way. So I'm going to set the setting to a minimum. I'm going to leave some, but not too much. I would probably increase it a tiny bit for automated operations on the block system, depending on the load. The other potentiometer is for the motor speed regulation. It works by amplifying the voltage going to the motor when it starts to drop under increased load. This helps the locomotive maintain its speed. That works very well on curves and ramps. Here again, given the weight of the locomotive and the light load it will be pulling most of the time, I'm going to leave it on a middle setting. Okay, time to put the body shell back on, and we are done. I have taken the original 3146 out so we can get an idea of the performance difference. See, they look identical, bar the roof and running number. Now, on the track, we'll move the 3546 first. At low speed, we hear mostly track noise. And look at how smoothly these wheels are turning. Now the 3146. And straight away it's much noisier. And bear in mind it's further away from the camera, so the microphone. So it's much louder. Right, this should have given us a taste. Right, let me put a small train together to finish the video. I have assembled a small heritage consist, which is probably what the prototype has been pulling for the last 40 years. Let's send it on its way. Pretty, isn't it? It is keeping a nice even speed on the curve there. And it runs very quietly too, doesn't it? Well, this was all pretty uneventful, which is a relief given the seller. This model is in excellent shape. I'm not regretting my purchase. Look at how easily it gets up the ramp. Okay, I wasn't expecting this video to be that long. Who would have thought there was so much to say about a little shunter? If you have made it that far, you have been very brave. Thank you so much for your time today. If you liked the video and want to support the channel, you know what to do. And whatever you do, thanks a lot. Bye for now.